Thank you, Ashik. Most esteemed
You're most welcome.
CEO and the correspondent of Nehru Group of Institutions. Sir, my audio is clear to all of you?
Yeah, please, sir. Audible,
Yes,
sir. Very much audible.
Respected principal of this illustrious institution, distinguished dean, faculty members, the organizing team, and most importantly, the bread and butter of the program, the participants. A very pleasant morning to every one of you. At the outset, let me wish every one of you a very happy Ramzan or a very auspicious Akshaya Tritiya, whatever is the case. Any day is a day of celebration. Best wishes to all of you at the beginning. And in fact, I would like to congratulate and appreciate an Nehru Group of Institutions for innovating and experimenting with many technologies in their academic endeavors. In fact, I myself have been a part of some of the initiatives they have done at the Krishna institutions, Nehru institutions, at the Nehru College of Arts and Science, not once or twice, a couple of times I associated myself with them. With these brief introductory note, I just would like to start off with my session. Why there is so much. Before I go ahead with my presentation, I think we are starting around 20 minutes late by the session's scheduled. So if the session is getting extended by about 10-15 minutes, I request you to kindly bear with me, because why I'm telling you at the very beginning is that last 10-15 minutes will be the time where we would speak about the different stages and steps involved. So you will have to bear with that extension, and I think the organizers will be in a position to request the next speaker and arrange timings a little here and there. And another
Please,
important thing I would
we will take it, sir.
Yes, sir. And another important thing I would like to mention here is that the schedules are drawn up to 1 o'clock or 1 or 1:15. That doesn't mean that afternoons are free for the participants. Participants have to work, right? Because when it is a workshop, there has to be some work, and there is some deliverables. And this program has been planned keeping in mind some output, as already spelt out by the principal. That is the outcome that is important here. So that doesn't mean that afternoon sessions, the only thing is it will not be a kind of live session sitting through, but everyone, you will be working on certain things. Maybe tomorrow's after Dr. Muthupandi's session, you will all do a little bit of shooting with your mobile phones or your laptop PCs. You will do a shooting of short academic content, and with the help of an open source platform, you are going to do a little bit of editing and some multimedia integration, so that what myself and Dr. Saktivel discussed at the time of planning for this workshop, that is to give the participants a touch and feel of every stage of this content development as a process. That is will be achieved. So that also I would like to make it clear at the beginning. Why there is so much of importance being given to content development? Probably our digital education systems in our country are somewhere there with about 60 to 65,000 crores of money. Right? Today, you may not believe a country like India, a developing country like India, is going in for an allocation of 60 to 65,000 crores, right, for digital education systems. And a considerable proportion of it is being allotted for content development activities. Why? Because you see, I was very happy to listen from our principal that a learning management system, an ICT infrastructure for seamless online learning and e-learning for the students of Nehru Institute of Technology is being put in place. I was very happy to, because there are a number of institutions where this infrastructure is a big matter of concern. But the governments, the institutions, the managements, they can create all these infrastructure, the platforms, okay, the portals, right? The connectivity, all these things can be done. But you see, all these things are done with the objective of facilitating anytime, anywhere learning to the students. Okay, and the entire purpose of creating all these infrastructure and facilities will fail if there is no sufficient contents are made available. That is why contents are available, no doubt. At the click of a mouse, you can get a lot of contents available: video, audio, graphics, animated contents are available. But if these contents have to lead to meaningful e-learning, what is required is culturally relevant, homegrown, locally developed modules, right? Okay, that's why all these words are important, right? Because the contents, the cultural relevance of the contents are important here. An NIT teacher knows the students, right? So what content will work for this boy or that girl, the teacher knows. That is why teacher made contents are given a lot of importance here. Not that you download something from the web and you just play it in the class with some understanding or with no understanding of what is happening in the learning. That is why it is important. That is why I always compare this type of a scenario, right? Like creating all these infrastructure, launching satellites, creating connectivity, knowledge network, right? Providing all these things. We have MOOC platform, SWAYAM platform, we have we have EPGP platform, CEC platform, right? We have n number of platforms in our country today for promoting e-learning, for providing open educational resources to the students, right? And creation of all these things are like preparing a nice dining table. Okay, today is a special day, right? Ramzan is there, Akshaya Tritiya is there. So on a festival day like this, when we arrange a nice dining table, all the best quality linen you put there, and arrange all types of glassware and the best quality porcelain plates and everything. But all these things will miserably fail when you don't have good quality, tasty food to serve out. So it is like that. So that is why content development is given a lot of priority. So with this introduction, let me go over to my presentation. Can Ashik or someone tell me whether my screen is shared?
Yes, sir. It's coming. Yes, sir.
Yes.
So is it full screen now?
It's visible, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. I request the participants to ensure that their mics are kept muted, and of course we will have an interaction time. At that time we can unmute and speak. So now coming to these three vital questions, that is the what, why, and how. This is what I'm planning to do in the next 1.5 hours or so. We will these questions are vital. We should know what is this e-content all about, and then if we don't know why of doing certain projects, then ultimately the involvement, the interest goes down. So we should know why this is being given importance, and then the how part, the last part, I would focus on that. And almost from where I am going to end, Dr. Muthupandi will pick up tomorrow and take you to certain demos and hands-on practice with regard to certain platform. Okay, so now coming to the question of what, e-content as such, this electronic content, it can be any content in electronic form. For that matter, I would say whatever lecture notes you prepare in the form of MS Word and share with your students through email, or you convert into PDFs and send them on WhatsApp groups. Okay, all these things are also e-content, no doubt at all, because the content is made available in the form of some electronic version, and you are creating it as a content on a word processor. So the content is digitally born and it is transmitted through a digital network, and the student is going to see that content, read that, reflect upon it on a screen. And all these things are electronic devices, see, and networks. So it can be any content in electronic form. But the e-content that we talk about in the context of e-learning in our India, learning management system based e-learning, okay, and in the context of our workshop, the e-content that we talk about is multimedia embedded video contents. I will go to the questions of why multimedia and other things in the due course, right? So as such, the e-content that we talk about in the context of today's discussion is a multimedia embedded video content meant for creating some visual effects. And you see, there is a theories of psychology. There is something called, there's very many theories are there. There is one theory called SR theory, because stimulus response theory. As per that theory, we would look at teaching as a stimulus and learning as a response. Okay, and learning should happen as a response to the stimulus we provide. And you know, the effect of an initiative of teaching has to be there in the form of a learning. But here, the input is going to be given in some visual media, and we expect that learning to happen as a visual learning. That's why it is called, it is usually meant for creating visual effect. We will discuss why there is so much of importance giving to visuals. We will talk about that, right? And you know, for creating that effect, okay, that desired visual effect, okay, which you intend to have in your class as a learning outcome, right? There is a possibility today, right, of combining many things: text, image, audio, video, graphics, animation, colors, right? All these things, it is possible. Okay, and you know, technically, I'm not going to too much of technical jargons, but being you're all engineering and technology people, you can easily understand that these are all the elements of multimedia. They are all basically elements of multimedia, and it is possible to combine. That's why it's called, it becomes a multimedia. Okay, when you put different audio as a medium, video as a medium, graphics, animation, okay, images, right? Everything, you know, text is no doubt a good medium. We don't say that because image is there, because video is there, text is of no use. It is not like that. Text is a good medium, right? And wherever text is possible, we can use text, right? Again, so there is a possibility of combining all these multiple media into one particular screen or a frame, keeping in mind the desired learning outcome. Okay, so that is what is important here. Okay, and you know, the process of e-content development, technically, it is called as knowledge packaging in digital forms. Knowledge packaging in digital forms. And as such, knowledge packaging, I would not say it is very new or very innovative, because for ages, knowledge packaging as an activity, as a process, has been going on from time immemorial, no doubt. For instance, you and I as a teacher, at least when we walk from our staff room to classroom, we do some knowledge packaging. We do some packaging, right? So we recall yesterday, the end of the class, I was talking about this. So I would pick from there and then add this, and at the end, I'm going to give this exercise and come out. Now, this is some packaging we do, okay? And you know, in the very early days of the Gurukula system, the guru wanted to deliver some knowledge to the students, to the sishyas, right? Not students in those days, right? Or the sishyas. So there was no formal classroom, there was no structured learning. So what he did, he involved the sishyas in some conversations, in some discussions, unstructured, right? As they were walking in the jungles, and you know, he was trying to communicate some wisdom to them, some practical wisdom. Okay, so that is the way. And you know, when the modern education system, a formal education system came in, right, with a classroom, lecture, a teacher, lecture note, this and that, you know, so lectures are another knowledge packages. And you know, songs, stories, ballads can also be knowledge packages. For instance, you know, you want to take some knowledge about COVID-19 awareness, okay, to a set of tribal population. No, you cannot print some leaflets with all scientific data from World Health Organization and distribute them. It will be meaningless. So you create a drama or a skit or a song, right, and play it to them, so that in their language, so that they will understand the seriousness of this deadly disease. Okay, so that way, songs, stories, ballads can also be there, and manuscripts, handwritten pages, print, audio, video. And today, because of the affordances of technologies, today we have multiple digital forms in which knowledge can be packaged and delivered. You know, there is another question that needs to be discussed here. Where is the question of packaging? You know, whenever there is a need for some delivery, then, you know, packaging comes in. Am I right? Okay. For instance, you know, maybe Satheeshwaran wants to deliver something to his friend, right? Maybe a couple of books and some lecture notes, some sheets of paper together to a friend in Chennai. So, or Mumbai, he has to deliver that content through a courier. So what he does, he packs it, right, in a nice cloth lined cover, right, wraps it with a nice cellophane tape, everything, and intact he takes it, so that the contents of the particular pack will be delivered as he wants it to happen. If he is going to loosely package it and give it to the courier office, the courier office person will say, sir, we cannot accept it, sir, because, you know, at a later time, if something is going to fall out, you are going to find fault with us, so kindly package it properly. So anything that needs to be packaged properly, anything that needs to be delivered properly needs to be packaged properly. And here it is important to note that this is knowledge packaging. This is not going to be open tomorrow or the day after. Please understand. Then you are going to create a module, and your the dean has made it a point that this is going to be made available on their website. Okay, so maybe after 10 years, after 6 years, after 15 years, some students are going to open these videos and watch the knowledge that you have packaged it into this particular short video. Right? So that way it is knowledge packaging. It is not only it is not for something that is of immediate use, right? And it is going to be there on some web portal, right? Some repository, right, of online learning for many years. So you have to keep that in mind, okay, while packaging knowledge, right? No, very simple. You know how much of efforts we do make to package our lunch, right, properly. 8 o'clock or 8:30 we package it. 1 o'clock we are going to open and eat. But, you know, unless there is some care, right, put into the packaging, you are not going to have the food as you expected it to be there for your lunch. Okay, so that is important here with regard to knowledge packaging. Okay? And so I've just spoken to you about one question: what is e-content? Okay, it is a knowledge package, and how much of importance has to be attached to the question of packaging. Right, we will discuss this packaging. You know, the tool that Dr. Muthupandi is going to introduce to you tomorrow is going to be the tool for packaging the knowledge, because you have some knowledge here, and we are going to give you some ideas how to package that knowledge in the form of multimedia embedded video content, and that tool is going to help you to do that activity. Okay, so now coming to the question why. Now there are very many reasons that I can talk about for hours together in terms of the reason for why e-content, but I would like to broadly bring many things under two focal points. One is, as we all know, that this is an era of knowledge explosion. We know that, and we often talk about that. Okay, this is an era of knowledge era. This is our country should emerge as a knowledge economy. So much of talk is there. What do we mean by this? You know, knowledge explosion refers to a phenomenon, a context where, you know, there is an unprecedented growth of knowledge beyond human control. Okay, human control. You know, explosion as such, you know that it's a word referring to bombing, blasting out. Okay, and out of its original meaning and the context, there are two places in which it is used. One is population explosion, and the other one is the knowledge explosion. We know that. Okay, so both these are talked in terms of the places where, you know, it goes beyond human control. So today, a country like India is an academically happening country, quote and unquote. I say. Why I say that is because that is not my expression. Microsoft's approach paper, right, published some 2-3 years back to digital library systems in India. That what says. So Microsoft wanted to do a kind of a digitalization process of libraries in India, and in the approach paper, right, it said why it wants to do that under CSR, that is corporate social responsibility in India, is because India is an academically happening country. Okay, where there are a lot of phenomenal academic activities, and an unprecedented knowledge growth is happening. For instance, some statistics the other day, my university research director was giving in a meeting, like on an average per month, somewhere around 120 to 140 PhD theses are submitted in a university, single university like Bharatadasan University. So imagine the total number of universities in the country and look at an average number of PhD submitted. So many researchers, so much of new knowledge is getting generated. That is why we say that it is the knowledge growth is phenomenal in the country. Due to all these cross-disciplinary, transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary perspectives, we have so much of new knowledge getting generated. And as you can see on the screen, this is a kind of a paradigm that sociologists or multidisciplinary researchers have come with regard to the growth of knowledge over the years or over the centuries in the world. Okay, so as you can see, from 0080 to 1750, right, knowledge doubled up in its size, okay, in its magnitude over 150 years. Okay, then 1750 to 1900, right, it was 150 years, and then 1950 to 2000, right, it was in 50 years. Okay, and then after 2000, right, it is estimated that the growth of the knowledge is to the tune of doubling up of its size and magnitude every year. And some of the recent reports say that after 2020, that is now we have already into that stream, right? That means less than 10 months of time, we are going to have knowledge doubling up in its size. What do we mean by this doubling of knowledge? Very simple. Today, on the Ramzan day of this year, 14th of May 2021, maybe we do a small activity. It's not a small activity, it will be a huge activity. We commission, right, a kind of a project wherein all the experts of all fields, law, medicine, dentistry, engineering, technology, botany, zoology, sociology, every discipline, all these people work till midnight today and come to a conclusion with regard to the knowledge pertaining to their field, that this is what is available in our field. Okay, by midnight, everybody submits a report. So the whole world's knowledge we will know by tonight 00 hours. Okay, that is what is available today, the total body of knowledge available in the world today. So in less than 10 months of time, this body of knowledge is going to be doubled up in size. Okay, so that is where the need for digital storage of knowledge comes. Okay, why there is a need for digital storage of knowledge? Because for a world which is so academically growing, right, if knowledge continues to be stored in the print or text, okay, the problem is that some of the predictions say that maybe after 60-70 years, the world may not have space for people to live. It will have space only for putting all the journals, theses, printed books and materials, if we are not going to switch over to digital storage. Okay, I will just give you a small example. Right? Maybe I just see some names here. Can I have somebody to speak here? Somebody like Brinda, madam, are you there? Dr. Brinda, are you there? Or anyone? Dr. Kishore, sir, are you there? Yeah, you can make it interactive. There is no need to be kind of a one-way communication.
Yes, sir. Available, sir.
May I know it is Dr. Brinda? Kishore, sir. Okay.
This
Kishore, sir, what's your subject, sir?
I'm into electrical and electronics.
Electrical and electronics engineering. I'm sure you're sitting with your laptop.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, if you are going to go to your D drive, E drive, or F drive totally in your computer, the laptop, how much of storage content you have made, sir? You have downloaded papers, your research work, your lecture notes, PPTs, videos. Just an approximate size. Somewhere around 20 GB to 30 GB you will have?
Yes, sir. It will be around 15 to 18 GB.
15 to 18 GB. If Dr. Kishore is going to take a printout of all these 18 GB content, it is going to be somewhere 12 to 15 lakhs of A4 size pages. Okay, that's what is the prediction. Okay, so I hope you understand what I mean to say that the digital storage is of greater importance, and if there is no digital storage and no digital libraries coming up, we are going to be in real trouble, right? Okay, and imagine every one of you. I took Dr. Kishore for an example. Every one of you can think how much of notes and PDFs you have downloaded, ebooks and other things in your system. And if you are going to take a printout of all these pages, right, somewhere around 1 GB will be about 70 to 85,000 pages of A4 size text content. Okay, so if you are going to take all these pages as printouts, maybe you all have to store your printouts in your room, and you may have to sleep outside your room. That's what is going to happen. So that is one of the reasons, right, why there is a need for digital storage of knowledge. Okay, and the second reason, right, why e-content for promoting learning to our students. Okay, you see, if you go to the National Education Policy 2020, there is so much of talk about being or converting our education systems into student-centric, into learner-centric patterns. Okay, so if you want to make your educational system learner-centric, then you should understand a little deep into this the learners. And you see, today's learners are a digital generation of learners. Okay, they're all digital learners. They're all the millennials. They're the Gen Next learners. Okay, they're all multimedia learners. Okay, they're digital learners, online learners, virtual learners, right, web-based learners. And if you want to understand better, and it's not that if you want to, I will say that you have to understand these dynamics of digital learning. If you want to make yourself relevant to a digital learning community, okay, I think most of us, maybe except our principal or our dean sir, myself, some elderly people, most of you, the young teachers, you are all going to have at least 10 or 15 years of academic service, right, in some institutions. So you are always going to have digital learners, right, in your classes. For better understanding of this, I would direct your attention to an author, Mark Prensky. Mark Prensky is a very celebrated writer, a great author, and he is a thought leader, right? He is celebrated worldwide as a thought leader. And he wrote an article, Digital Natives, Digital Immigrants, where he came out with a lot of explanations and examples with regard to the personalities, the learning styles, the preferences, the media culture of these digital learners, digital natives. And what he said was a kind of a classification, that is, all children born in a country after the electronic boom period. Any country has one period, maybe about 3 to 7 years period, identified as an electronic boom period. Okay, in a country like India, maybe it was all 87 to 89, 90, 91, 90 to 93. That was a time. Okay, that was the time when the electronic boom happened in India. That means the cost of the electronic gadgets went down, and common men and women started buying a lot of electronic gadgets, digital devices for their day-to-day work, right, communication, entertainment. So maybe principal sir or dean sir may recall that was a time when we got our black and white television, right, Solitaire, Dynera television, right, and with a shutter and all, right, which we used to watch once in a week Mahabharat, right, or once in a week Chitrahar. Okay, that was the time. Okay? And all children who have taken birth in the world after this electronic boom period, they all take birth in a digital world, and they grow in a digital world. And all those people who have taken birth in the pre-digital era and who have migrated into this digital era, they become digital immigrants. And children born after this digital revolution in any country, they become digital natives. For instance, I'm basically a Coimbaturian, though I am at Bharathidasan University for nearly 16, 17 years. Okay, whenever we go to places, any place in the country or the world, when you say, oh, you are from Trichy, sir, no, immediately I'll say, no, sir, I'm from Coimbatore, sir. Okay, but I work in Bharadasan University, which is located in Trichy. So why that sense of nativity? Because I was born at Coimbatore, I grew up here, I was growing along with Coimbatore. As Coimbatore expanded, I was growing myself. So that way, that sense of nativity, and these digital natives, right, whose lives are deeply immersed in media culture, right? It becomes much easier for them to work with digital devices. And there are a lot of things Mark Prensky talks about, this digital learners. I would appeal to all of you that kindly go through that. Maybe I can share this 5.5 page article with Dr. Saktivel and his team, who in turn can share with you, right? Yeah, I would say that it's a must read for you, right? And you see, when the learners are a digital generation of learners who are basically multimedia learners, who are not tuned to your dull and monotonous classroom-based teaching of one-way communication, then if you want to make our education systems, teaching, learning relevant to that generation, we will have to go for a digital learning. Yeah, that digital learning and digital content, right? That's it. So digital learning requires content in digital form, and these digital forms are many: audio, video, graphics, multimedia, right, animation, right, and whatnot, right? Many other things, right? And when there is a possibility of using multiple media, right, to convey the message, to take the message to the students, then that's better used, right? See, I'm not saying that a classroom is not a place where learning can happen. Okay, even inside a classroom, audio is there, your speech is there, and video is there, you are there, right, in all flesh and blood, right? Again, three-dimensional, right? There is no need to create an animation, you are there live. Okay, and there is a visual aid. Okay, there is a blackboard where you go and write with your white chalk, right, a contrast color, right? And when you want to highlight something, you make use of an yellow chalk or an orange color chalk or a pink color chalk, right? You change the colors, right? That is no doubt a kind of an audio video combination, no doubt at all. But the only problem in a classroom based learning environment is that it is available only there, and it cannot be replicated, and it cannot make itself available 24/7. It is there only from 9:30 to 10:30. That's all. Okay, so that is what is the importance here. Okay, that is the mild differences are there between that. So what I'm trying to say that you should not be under the wrong impression that a classroom based teaching, a teacher's talk and chalk model, right, is of no use at all. It is not the way. Please understand that. Okay, that is another thing I want to make it clear. It should not be misconstrued that way, that I'm here to say something like all these classroom based chalk and talk business is useless and that cannot produce learning at all. The idea behind using e-learning portals, web-based tools and other things is that to ensure that better learning, to maximize learning. Okay, that is what is the idea here. Okay, and so this is the other reason I want to highlight here for the question why. So what happens in the minds of the digital learners today is digital learning, and digital learning requires, right, content in digital form, and the content in digital form can be, right, a combination of multiple media content, and there are lots of technology platforms which help you, right, to create such multimedia digital content, right, to meet the demands of the 21st century learners whose lives are deeply immersed in the media culture. Then, there was a kind of a picture the New Indian Express brought in sometime earlier during the pandemic, during the lockdown. Now, how much of the content was consumed by people? There was an analysis, a picture was put sometime earlier. The media consumption they put. So when because newspapers were not there, right? Mostly because for the fear of the COVID-19 spread, most of the people stopped getting newspapers. So we were all dependent on our television sets and our web portals for getting to know the updates and all. So there was a survey conducted, right, during the first wave, how much of media was consumed by the people. And the interesting result was children in the age group of 8 to 18. Okay, and their media culture was so deeply connected to audio video content, web content, and they have consumed more than about 64% of the content in the audio video content only, right? Some less than 30% of the content in print and text. Okay. Suresh Kumar sir, can you mute your mic, please? Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. So that was a kind of a media consumption behavior that is going on. Okay, so now with this answer to the questions what and why, let me go over to the features of e-content. Because it is multimedia embedded video content, the content can lead to multi-sensory learning experiences. We will discuss this multi-sensory learning experience a little elaborately, and other things they require little explanation, because there is a possibility of combining audio, video, text, graphics, animation, image, many things, right? There is the phenomenon of digital convergence. Okay, what happens is it is possible to converge many things. For instance, if a teacher of geography or geosciences wants a kind of a map to come, and over a map some images have to come, some icons have to come, some aromas have to come, some music has to play, some animation has to happen on the screen, and all these things can be made to happen so that all these things can be converged, and on the screen all these things together will give the student a realistic learning experience, right? Combining all these phenomena, which will lead to better learning. And you see, content creation is based on a principle called principle of chunking. You see, as such, chunking is a process of breaking down something into smaller and smaller, that. Okay, that's why soya chunks, when you make some soya curry or some vegetable biryani, you put some the soya chunks. They are available in different sizes, bigger ones, small ones, bigger ones for soya curry, and smaller ones for biryani, like that. We have, like, chunking is breaking down the knowledge units here into smaller and smaller units, right? Why we should do chunking, right? You see here there is a picture, on one side you see a knowledge unchunked, a full block of knowledge, and after chunking, the full block of knowledge comes into smaller chunks. And you also should see that the chunking is not equally into 5 parts or 4 parts. It is chunking of knowledge should happen into some meaningful chunking, right? For instance, one is smaller, other one is little bigger, other one is smallest, then bigger, like for instance, when even in a class sometimes it happens. So when you start a class, if it is a 1 hour class, 50th minute, one part of the explanation is over for you, right? So that is one chunk, and you don't want to start the other chunk, the next unit or the next part, because that may take more time. So you stop there and you do some pep talk, some casual talk, the last 10 minutes, and maybe in another class you will start the class and go about, and you would tell the other teacher who's going to handle the next hour, sir, I will need 10 more minutes from your class because I want to complete this portion today, right? Because that may be a longer chunk. Okay, so like that, we don't do that way. Exactly 60th minute, whatever we are explaining, we stop there abruptly and come out. We don't do that. Okay, we do some chunking here also. So like that, when knowledge units are chunked into meaningful units and presented in a sequence, in some systematic sequencing, it leads to meaningful learning. That's why it has to be chunked. Here, knowledge units have to be broken down into smaller and smaller units, right? And video contents are better if the content units are less than 20 minutes duration. If it is going to be a talk, okay, and if it is going to be a kind of a video lecture, right, it will be better if it is somewhere around 14 to 20 minutes. And if it is going to be richly embedded with multimedia content, it is better to stop with 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, because more than that, attention span, of the students' minds, you cannot hold them, right? Okay? And we often talk about it. When you see a 3-hour movie, okay, sometime you come out with a headache, and people think that watching a movie is something very easy. It's not that way. You need to concentrate, you need to link right events with some other events, right? And you have to understand the visual cues, and then only you will be in a position to appreciate the film. For watching a film is different and appreciating a film is different. Okay, and if you want to truly appreciate a film, it is going to be a big exercise, like reading an academic book. It's going to be. That is why sometimes, you know, when you're too focused and the theme seems to be a little heavy, you get a headache. Okay, so that is why, you know, such long hours of audio video content exposure is not that good. Okay, and you know, interactivity, we are going to see that, right? I'll demonstrate that how interactive, right, can be, because you know, today it's all interactive. With the help of all these menus, sub menus, and different buttons available on the e-module platforms, right? The student can interact with the content in any way as he or she likes. There is nothing like linear patterns of learning. In a classroom lecture, what happens is linearity. You explain this first, and then next, and then next, and then next. Now, if the student wants to go to the third section or the third portion, he or she cannot do it. But here, the contents will be made available. Introduction, types. If imagine, I'm just giving, it's about communication. Okay, introduction to communication, importance of communication, then elements of communication, barriers to communication. Okay, skills of communication. If all these things are made available as separate video content, separate modules, then if the student does not want to learn anything about barriers, he can straight go to skills of communication. You know, non-linear learning it becomes, right? Okay, but if in a class I am going to handle to the students, right, I'll explain what is communication. I will explain to them elements of communication, process of communication, barriers to communication. Okay, and then only I will go to, right, the skills of communication. Right, the student has to wait, right, till I come to that portion. Right, that's what is interactivity will help in helping the entire process of learning, a learning centered, learner centered. Okay, and accessibility. For instance, as I was already telling, right, if somebody here, right, Ketan Kothari is here, right, Ishwari Katwani is here. If both of them are going to create one module on their subject and make it available on their college website, right, the content will be made available to the students 24/7. Okay, Dr. Ketan or Dr. Ishwari cannot be there available to the students 24/7. But you see, the content they make and make it available on the sites, no? Or some portal, even they upload it on YouTube. Anytime, anywhere, the students can access. If they just give your name or the topic name, then the content is going to be made available to them. Right? And then the contents created by teachers, these modules, no, they're reusable. Okay? Why reusability? I was already explaining to you. Right? A classroom lecture is less reusable. It starts at 9:05 and it ends by 9:55. Okay, that's all. There ends the matter. You ask the teacher to repeat it tomorrow again, the same 15 minutes, it is not going to happen. Okay, next year, right, or next semester, the examples may be different, explanation may be different, exercises may be different. But you see, then later only the teacher will realize, I think this year the explanation that I gave did not work out well. But last year, no, all of them have done well because they understood the matter clear. No, by the time the teacher realizes that it has not done the work, right, the semester is gone. Right, the students are at a loss. Okay, so if a good quality content is made available, and you know, the contents can be reused n number of times. Right, again, there is something called dynamic knowledge and constant knowledge. For instance, E is equal to MC square is constant knowledge. If there is the and year after year, semester after semester, all teachers keep on explaining. Imagine if there is a teacher of physics or electronics who is so good at explaining this concept, and you know, the entire video is captured and made available to all the students, then you know, it becomes so easy for all the students to get the same quality learning content. See, so but what happens sometimes, we talk about this, you know, that college, you know, the teacher, you know, that physics teacher is so good, and the explanation she gives or he gives is so excellent that even the dullest of the dull student will understand. But you know, after the retirement of that teacher, you know, there was nobody to replace that. Imagine if that teacher's video explanation of certain things have been captured and made available on the institutional web portal. Now the content can be reused n number of times. Teachers can reuse, learners can reuse, right? Okay, so the same quality learning content is made available to all of them at any point of time. Okay, and interoperability is going to be operable on any different platforms, right? Very simple, right? Okay, so then I would just go to this multi-sensory learning, right? A little I wanted to share with you. These are all very famous Chinese proverbs. You know, there is something called in our, I think so I could see somebody from NCRT died, some Dr. Neha or somebody, and somebody else from Karnataka University when they came in from education department. They all know this well. In teacher training, right, we talk about the senses are the gateways of knowledge. Okay, you see, there is no way that an individual can get knowledge without involving human senses. Okay, that is why we keep talking about multi-sensory learning experience. All learning to human beings take place only with the help of human senses. So the simple understanding here is, if you as a teacher can involve more than one sense into your teaching learning process, then learning is better, retention is better, the students remember for longer duration, the students learn the content much easier. Okay, these are all objectives, right? You see, I hear, I forget, I see, I remember, I do. These are all very important things, right? Why we give practicals in all engineering, science, technology disciplines? Because, you know, only when they do, they understand. Okay, that's a simple idea. And you know, this is about 1,000 hearings are not so effective as one seeing. Okay, it's we can keep on explaining in n number of words, right? This is how the centrifugal pump works, or this is how the piston works, a two-stroke engine works. Okay, but you know, if a mechanical engineer can play an animation video from a website, something like animatedengines.com. That's a beautiful site which automobile engineers can make use of. Animatedengines.com. All types of engines are shown as animations. So without breaking open the entire engine, what happens inside, you know, the students can see. Then the student sees that content, right? Sees that action, okay, that animate through animations, and understands. So this is the way this piston moves up and down. This is what is the difference between a single stroke and the two-stroke engine. That's how it is, right? Again, so similarly, a picture is worth 1,000 words. These are all proverbial statements, right? That's all. Because you know, we cannot depend so much on proverbial statements, but this is research. But you know, after a lot of psychological research into human learning, right? You know, educational psychologists have found out that this is the relative contribution of human senses to learning. Now, a relative, okay, the percentage may differ a little here and there from subject to subject, individual to individual, right? Because every individual is uniquely different, and every individual learns in an altogether different way, right? And you know, the relative contribution may be varying, right? Okay. For instance, you know, a textile engineering students or a costume design students, you know, may get a lot of learning through touch, okay, because you know, they will feel the cloth, they will feel the difference between a spun or a polyester cloth or a linen cloth, right? They will learn the difference. Similarly, for a catering technology student, for a student from catering science, you know, taste may be contributing more, okay. But whereas an English language and literature student, taste may not contribute at all, right? Because after all, he is going to read from printed textbooks, right? Poetry, drama, short story. Where is the question of taste? Okay, that's it. Okay. Of course, there is always a happiness attached to the book smell. Okay, that's it. Okay. Then you know, look at the last two: the hearing and sight, the sight and sound, the audio and video. The maximum contributor to human learning is that, and you see 11% and 83% sound and sight. If these two things can be combined, audio and video, right, then you know, learning can be taken to the level of 94%. Okay, this is what is the theory. And you know, look at this, right? What is the level of contribution that the senses make to human retention, remembering? How much of content a child remembers? Okay, so this is what is 20% of what they hear, only hearing. If you are a lecturer and you are going to talk for 1 hour, be assured that more than 20% nothing is remembered by the students in your class. Okay, and if there is something that you are going to write on the table, show something, okay, draw a picture, draw a diagram, then you know, up to 30% and up to 50% combining seeing and hearing. Okay, and you know, if you are going to make the students say something aloud, it may lead to 80%, but in higher education it may not be possible to practice. But in kindergarten level, in school education, it happens, right? Okay, and 90% of saying and doing, right? All young teachers, you can think, what is the homework your son or daughter is getting? Say and write the following words. Okay, say and write the following numbers. Okay, say and write the following letters. Okay, so when saying and doing is combined, the remembrance goes up to 90%, right? So these are all the theories, right? You'll have to understand that, right? Again, so now I have just tried to answer the question why. Okay, there are 2 points I have made. One is knowledge has to be stored in digital forms, so we go to digital storage. So in digital storage, even text content, word processors, PDF contents are possible. So why specifically we are going for multimedia content is because the learners are digital learners. They are all multimedia learners. They learn better if multisensory learning experiences are provided. And for providing multisensory learning experiences, audio video combinations can lead to better learning experiences. Why audio video combinations again, right? Because a video, a multimedia embedded video content can trigger the other senses also. For instance, again, I will tell you, it's around 11:30, right? Imagine if you are watching a television advertisement, okay, an advertisement for a particular brand of pickle, okay, and you see the advertisement, they're so tight, the camera very close up it shows the pickle plate or a bowl, okay, it is there filled with all that oil, that red color, okay, everything is there, okay. You see, you are only seeing that. You are not actually, it is not right there in front of you. You don't have the smell of it around you. But still, when you see an advertisement, you start mouth watering. Am I right? Okay. And I'm sure some of you are mouth watering now also, thinking about that particular advertisement. Okay. Now, that is what a visual input can add to. A visual thing can add to a human experience. So when you see something, right? Okay, something, for instance, sometimes you see from the roadside CCTV cameras, some footages, some video news channels, they show there was a huge accident, and the CCTV cameras has been captured and is made available, and you see two vehicles just colliding with each other like anything, and people are crying aloud and there is bloodshed, right? And it has already happened, it's over, right? It's several hours back, it's over, okay. But what happens is that when you see that in front of your eyes happening on the screen, you become so, oh my god, come on, let us switch off that television channel, right? There is no, you become so much, right? Even after several hours, when you talk about that particular road accident to some friend, oh my god, I saw that on the television channel, okay, I for 2-3 hours I could not stand it. That is the way that the visual can create a human experience, right? So that is why I just wanted to highlight these things. Now coming to types of e-contents. Now there are several types. Short courses are there, units are there, modules are there. We will discuss all this. Full courseware are there. Full courseware means the entire course content. For instance, if somebody is going, if it is always institutions do that, not individuals. If one institution is going to take up a project, maybe your 4-year BTech chemical engineering. So excluding the languages and ancillary papers, all chemical engineering papers, you take a project and convert all these modules, okay, all 5 units of every paper of the BTech chemical engineering program into e-content, e-module, then it becomes full courseware, okay. Short learning objects and MOOC compliant e-content, I will show you here. So the forms of e-contents, there are basically 3 forms, okay, and one is called short learning objects, SLOs, okay. Short learning objects, I will tell you that it's a very new way of thinking about learning content, because there is something called modular approach to content development. There is something called granular approach, okay. For instance, modules are little longer, okay, little broader and little more comprehensive, and granular approach leads to the short learning objects, very short video files. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, or 6 minutes at the maximum. Okay. In extreme case, it can be up to 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Explaining all these concepts short way. Earlier, they were called as RLOs, reusable learning objects. A learning object is, by the way, a very simple one. A multimedia content is called a learning object. For the different purpose of meta tagging, metadata, and other things, it is used while it is going to be used in learning management systems. Okay, but let us basically understand that a learning object is a multimedia embedded video file. It plays in a video player. Okay, and it is usually from about 3 to 8 minutes at the maximum. Okay, so that is how we look at the short learning object. And short learning objects can be created on anything under the sun. You can create a short learning object on a mobile phone, right? You can say that, you know, there are different types of phones. Some are landline phones, fixed phones, and some are mobile phones. Mobile phone is something that you is a handheld device. There are multiple different forms of phones. You can create a short learning object on a ceiling fan. You can create a short learning object on a wristwatch. Anything that you can create. Okay, so you can scientifically explain that, right? With all images, videos if required, animations if required, and can be there as a reusable video content. Anyone at any point of the time they want to learn the basics of a ceiling fan, they can play that. A ceiling fan is always mounted in a ceiling, and it will have this type of three wings will be there. It comes in this type of variations, and this is the way it started coming. You can even go to historical perspective. This is the way it started, like that, you know, up to the modern day remote device IoT embedded ceiling fans. Up to that, you can scientifically look at it, write a script for that, and create a video, so that anybody who wants to know, right, what a ceiling fan is and how it has developed over several years. Okay, and how it functions, right, with a remote device or with a speed control device, you know, they can watch and understand. Okay, so usually it is this way, and this is how a HTML page of a short learning object looks like. Now there is something called a learning objects repository. Okay, a repository is a storehouse of all these learning objects, and you know, here there will be kind of a three zones here. In the first one, you know, that horizontal bar, you see there is a question: what is acid rain? And you see there the next text box that you have here is on the left side, is the textual answer for the question. So it explains acid rain is something this and that, you know, it can be in the form of wet and dry disposal, this and that. And the right window, the video window, that is what we call as a short learning object. Here it may run for about 1 minute and 19 seconds, 20 seconds, and where, you know, the teacher may appear for 15 seconds or 20 seconds, and she may disappear from the screen, and on the screen you will see a lot of animation graphics happening, and there maybe in the last 5 seconds or 10 seconds she will again reappear on the screen and say something like, I am sure you have all understood what is acid rain, thank you, like that. Okay, so this is how the short learning object looks like. And the big difference here in terms of the learning experiences, I want you to understand, focus your attention here. One is on the text box, where there is a textual explanation of acid rain. The student can read and understand what is acid. And on the video window, where the learning object plays, the student can experience what is acid rain. I hope you understand the difference. Okay, reading and understanding acid rain is different, and experiencing acid rain is different. And in order to give that experience of acid rain, the content creator can have video, can have animation, can have image, and can have music, and can have all these multimedia elements embedded into that particular production. Okay? So this is how it works. Okay, and it will be good if the couple of mics that are turned on are turned off. I see some interference, right? Maybe the admin also can take care of it. So Now, the next form of e-content is the modules, as I told you. Don't worry, my dear friends, you are going to create only short learning objects. Okay, so maybe about 5 to 6 minutes. Okay, not more than that at the first level. Okay, so when you learn how to prepare a cup of tea, you will learn with preparing 1 cup of tea for yourself only. Okay, am I right? Okay, and then only you will learn how to prepare 3 cups or 4 cups or 10 cups, and disturb people at home also. Okay, so it is going to be at the first level, and as a first content development exercise that you are going to do, you are going to create only a short learning object of about 5 minutes to 6 minutes on a small topic which you are going to identify this afternoon, and you are going to work on that for creating, yes, a script. Okay, and modules, they are larger, more comprehensive, and more independent, and they have objectives, experiences, and assessment. And roughly the multimedia content will be there for about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, and this is how I will give you the website of this Consortium for Educational Communication also. You can go and see. It's very simple. It is one of the largest MOOC providers in our country, UGC CEC, Consortium for Educational Communication. So if you go there, you will see, right, there is something called, you look at this home page. It is for BA History program. BA History is a program. Okay, and History of USA is a course. Okay, and the topic Evolution of American Democracy is a module. Okay? And for a module, you have objectives, you have summary, you have the video audio contents, you have text content, you have assignments, you have references, downloads, blogs, right? All these things are made available. Okay, so this is what I mean by interactivity. So when the student clicks on objectives, when the student interacts with video audio content, right, he is going to get that extreme thing. That, now imagine if the student directly wants to go to quiz without reading the summary, he or she can straight away go. This is how the module works. This is how the module is structured. But please understand, even within this, when the student clicks on video audio, the student is going to have sub modules, and each sub module will be for 7 minutes, 8 minutes only. So it will be about 30 minutes content. At least it will have five or six sub modules, right? So it is going to be that way. So if you are going to train yourself in creating one short learning object, you will be in a position to create a module also by adding more short learning objects. So if you are going to create a module on environmental pollution, so maybe one short learning object on introduction to environmental pollution, another maybe short 1, 2 minutes or 3 minutes on types of environmental pollution, then next short 4 or 5 minute content maybe on sources of environmental pollution, right? Maybe another 6 minutes or 7 minutes about the effects of environmental pollution, and maybe another 5 minutes or 6 minutes about controlling environmental pollution. Like that you are going to create. So one full module will come on environmental pollution. Okay, so that's how it is going to be. And this is MOOC compliant e-contents, right? For creating content for massive open online courses, especially on SWAYAM portal. Okay, especially on SWAYAM portal, because the MOOC providers of the world like Coursera, edX, or Audacity, right? Allison, they follow different patterns, but SWAYAM, we follow the 4-quadrant approach, where there are 4 segments: e-tutorials, e-contents, discussion forum, and assessment will be there. And this is how SWAYAM course is structured. So quadrant 1 is e-tutorials. In e-tutorials, you will have video content, you have demonstrations, you have games, all these things available in the form of multimedia and video content. Okay, and in e-content portal, you are going to have all these PDF files, lecture notes, right, and other enrichment activities and other things. And quadrant 3, you are going to have a discussion forum, the threads, the different segments under which people can discuss the content. If it is again the course is on environmental pollution, discussion forum threads will be air pollution, noise pollution, disaster management, waste management, something like that. Sustainable development, something like that, right? And if a set of boys wants to discuss sustainable development, they can go there. If 4 or 5 people want to discuss global warming, they can go there. Like that, discussion forum threads will be provided. And assessment, multiple forms of assessment will be provided here. Quiz will be there, and self-assessment questions will be there, and short answer type questions will be there, a survey will be there. Like that, multiple forms of assessment will be provided. Okay? So now, maybe I will have another 8 minutes to 10 minutes. So there are 2 stages and 9 steps I want to explain to you. Stages of content development are 2. One is conceptualization stage, and that is what is the stage you will be today afternoon. Okay, today after lunch you are going to be in this stage. That is, it's a very important phase where you will develop a global understanding of the curriculum. This is already you have. If you are a teacher of chemistry, you have a clear understanding of the curriculum of chemistry. What is important here is that now you should have a micro vision to create content as a standalone learning experience. So chemistry is a huge chunk, and then if you do further chunking, it becomes organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, physical chemistry, pharmaceutical chemistry. Then further chunking you go, then you go to specific topics, something like chemical bonding. Okay, and choose that topic, and you see whether chemical bonding you can explain as briefly as possible with some animation, graphics, and images in the given 5 minutes to 6 minutes. Then you choose that topic and write a script for that. I will tell you how to go about writing a script. And in this stage, you should do a little bit of modeling and visualization also. Modeling, that means seeing different models. If you want to create a short learning object on chemical bonding, okay, for 6 minutes, you should see at least 10 or 15 different short learning objects on different aspects of chemistry. Okay, only then you will have an idea, oh, this is how I should have my introduction, so this is how I should have my explanation, and this is how I should have my closure, ending of the lesson, like that. Okay, so that is why models are important. Then now the question comes is that where to go for models, sir? Okay, now where should we go to model? That is why I told you CEC portal has a learning objects repository. Your Google CEC's YouTube channel has several model content, approved content, quality checked contents available. You can go there and see for yourself, right? How content. So that is very important, right? Okay, and what is important is here that you should see multiple contents. If you are straight away getting into the production work, it cannot happen. Please understand. And you should have lots of good models, and you should visualize. You see, visualization means you should have an idea as to how finally on the screen my content is going to be seen by my students. Okay, you should put yourself in the student's shoes, and when the student sits in front of the laptop, in front of the screen, what is going to be there on the screen delivered to him, and how that is going to lead to his or her learning. That is very, very important. Okay, so that is why visualization is important here. I always say that visualization is something like work we do when we want to do some house building work. Imagine if I want to build a house for myself. Okay, what would I do? I would call an engineer and discuss with him, sir, this is my budget and this is my space. I have some lands of about 10 cents or 12 cents. Okay, and I want to have a house like this. Okay, at three bedroom or 4 bedroom or first floor, ground floor, or ground floor only, right? Now all these things with one car park, with some garden. Okay, this and that, I'll talk to him. And when the discussion on my part is over, the part 2 of the discussion, who will do that? Yes, then as most of the lady participants can guess, my wife will do the part 2. Okay, am I right? Now what she will do? Sir, engineer sir, you come here. You have finished to talk with my husband. Now I want to tell you some important things, sir. Now in my uncle's house, this is the way they have designed the kitchen. Very convenient to work, and design the kitchen like that. And in my friend's home, the dining hall, they have made like this. You design like that, sir. So the space is very effectively used, and it's very convenient to work with. Okay, and the hall, okay, the arrangement of the book rack, right? All these things. My husband is a useless professor. He has got lots and lots of books, so you arrange all these things like that, so that it becomes easy for me to clean. Okay, so like that, that is what she is doing. she has seen the best things somewhere, right? And she is trying to bring in all those elements into the house that she is going to have for herself. Okay, that is what I tell you. If a chemistry teacher here sees, right, some modules on chemistry, then she will pick up the best elements from there. Okay, let me do the same type of introduction here. That is nice. Okay, and the closure part, that content, it was very good. That module, that last part was quite good. I will do the same type of closure here. So that your quality, the content of your quality, right, will be up, right? So that is what I would like to tell you. Then the next one, composition, composing. Okay? Composing is a word that goes with music, poetry, and photographs. Okay, in olden days when we had our still camera separately, okay, when you open your lens and try to shoot a particular object, inside you will see some rectangles, some big rectangles, some small rectangles. Now that is for you, that is for helping you to compose your image better. Whatever was shown inside that big rectangle means that is what is going to be the occupying the larger space in the printout of the photograph. You are going to get it. Okay, so that is what is the thing. So similarly, you should know how to arrange your elements, right? What type of video I am going to use, what type of, which one I am going to show as an image, which one I am going to show as an animation. Yeah, again I will go to chemical bonding. I'm not a chemistry teacher. I'm a teacher of English basically, but still I'm just giving a small example. And if chemical bonding has to be shown, naturally the way in which molecules bond, you have to use an animation. Okay, so and that is something important here, like that, And what is important here is preferably a combination of multiple elements. An image, a video, a graphic, an animation. If you can combine all these multiple media, now the richness of your content will be better, right? That's what I would like to say. It's not that I would say that Dr. Anu, can you mute your mic, ma? Yeah, thank you. So it's not that I would say that only video talking will not be helpful to students. That will be helpful, no doubt. But it will become a videographed lecture. It will not become e-content. If you want to make it an e-content, you should embed your video content with lots of multimedia elements. And the higher the multimedia content, it is richer. And the lower the multimedia content, your content becomes lean in terms of multimedia. These are all based on lots of theories. I'm not taking you into that multimedia richness theory. But at the same time, right, I would like to tell you that you cannot have too much of multimedia contents also. You should have a judicious mixer, right, of content. Imagine I'm giving a small example. Miss Devika, can you tell me what's your subject, ma'am? Miss Devika, are you there? Or Dr. Sumantu is there? Dr. Kulwant Kaur is there? Can anyone tell me what's your subject? Just for an example, quickly. Otherwise, no problem. I myself will tell you. Imagine.
Sir, human development in home science.
Production and practices.
Okay. Right. Somebody's on practices, right? Okay. So what is that? What production? Plant production.
Yes, sir. Crop production and its practices.
Yeah, so something like agriculture or something like that. Okay. So crop production. Yes, and you want to show something about some germination or something like that. Okay. And the content is going to be for about our weeds or how to do different types of weeds or something like that you're going to show. Okay. And it's going to be about 5 minutes, 6 minutes content. In 6 minutes content, the teacher has to appear at the beginning for about 10 to 15 seconds to say hello. Right? You start with something like, hello students, shall we now discuss the different types of weeds, or shall we now discuss the germination process, something like that. Please don't ever say, one thing I want to tell you is that never start something like, dear students, I'm going to explain to you germination process. Never say that, because I is not a language of the media at all. Okay? It's always better to start with something like, shall we discuss, or it is better if you say, dear students, you are now going to learn the process of germination, something like that, because the media language is always you. Okay, so then something like that you say, that takes about 10 to 12 seconds. Then at the end, you have to again come on the screen and say, I'm sure all of you have understood and enjoyed this particular video on germination, the content on germination, like that, you're going to say, and thank you, you're going to say that. So in between, you will have about 5 minutes or so at the maximum. In the 5 minutes, how much of multimedia integration can? No, maybe 2 or 3 images, or some 15 to 20 seconds or 30 seconds of videos, or 15 seconds to 20 minutes of animation. That only is possible. Okay, because in a single bowl of badam milk, you cannot have a quarter kg badam. It's not possible, right? Okay, so you can have only the badam seeds enough for 1 cup of badam milk. That's what. However tasty it is, if it is going to be with about 200 gram of badam, people are going to say that was tasty, but there was too much of badam. No, we could not enjoy the milk at all. That's it's going to be there. Right? So that is why it's important. And stylistic considerations, your color combinations, font size, right, and the image quality, all these things are very important. Imagine now, I'm using a PowerPoint slides here. Imagine it is going to be a dark green background and some dark brown letters. What you are going to say about it? Okay? You say, what not nonsense fellow he is. He is talking about e-content development. He himself doesn't know how to choose colors for the slides. Okay? That's what you are going to say. So the font size, font colors, right? All these things are important. The background, everything. And ultimately, you should understand that you are making use of an entertainment platform like video for education. So it has to have the features of entertainment and education. So it becomes a real edutainment experience for your students. Okay. Actually, learning should become lighter, right? Because the learning is provided on an entertainment platform. If you are going to look very, very stern, and you are going to look very serious, after seeing you, even a very light content, the student becomes much senior, much serious, and ultimately the student becomes very, very dull and sad. You should not be. You should look relaxed. You should be very natural, just as you are in the classroom, in your class, in your delivery, your facial expressions, gestures, your body language should be very natural and friendly in your on-screen presentation, so that it becomes a very presentation with some effective and efficient body language and a blend of the content. That's what I would like to say. Okay? So coming to the last but one slide, steps involved. Whatever I have put in red color here is all the pre-production steps. So till you switch on your camera in your laptop and click on this record button. Okay, till you start your recording, whatever you do is going to be pre-production stage activities. Okay, so writing a script is very important, right? And get it corrected, grammar, consistency, meaning, factual item, everything, 200% you should get it perfect, because it is going to be a digital document. You are recording your audio, and you are going to add some video and graphics and animation and images to relevant images to the particular talk that you are making, and you are going to render it out as an output, and you are going to put it on a website, and anybody in the world can see. If you are going to explain, right, something on the centrifugal force, the functioning of a centrifugal pump, right, somebody sees this and makes a comment, what nonsense explanation it has been given, right? And the explanation was good, but you see the images and video are inappropriate, so people are going to comment on it, right? That is why you should make your work right perfect. Now I think slowly you understand why so many people are not coming forward content development, right? Content development becomes a little, why it is important is that if you want to create one good module of about 8 minutes, you should spend at least 1 week on it. Okay, improving the quality, right? Making it more perfect, right? Refining it, right? Then it becomes a permanent document. N number of times you can make use of it, right? Okay? And collect all the visuals. So as I already told you, whatever you are going to show as a picture, get the picture downloaded, get the picture ready, right? And whatever you are going to show as a video, right? Get the video, right? And if you want, and if you are going to use some videos, You download the full video from YouTube if you want to make use of, and ensure that it is copyright free, right? And you can cut it short. And for instance, some teacher is going to explain. Again, I'll give some example like genetic engineering. There is a beautiful video which shows maybe something on cell division is there. A nice video is there, right? It's available. But the video is for 8 minutes, but you want only 50 seconds. You download the full video, and using an online cutter, there are a number of video cutters available. You just search on Google video cutters. So many cutters are available. Video cutters are. You take that video to the cutter and clip exactly that 50 seconds. 1 minute, 1.10 to 2.10, 60 seconds. You cut it, extract it, and use that for your editing cutters. Okay, like that. And preparing a storyboard. Storyboarding is not something that you are going to do now, but if you are going to do it in a project mode, right, you have to create a storyboard also, frame by frame. Audio, what you are going to say. Video, what you are going to be there on the screen. When you say, hello students, shall we now discuss 2 types of communication? Then teacher's screen, teacher's presence. And when you say 2 types of communication, what should come on the screen is a slide, a picture with communication, 2 arrow marks down, verbal, non-verbal. Okay? And the broad categories of communication are 2, verbal and non-verbal. When you say verbal, the word verbal should appear. And when you say non-verbal, the word non-verbal should appear. And don't worry, tomorrow Dr. Muthupandi will tell you how to work on all these things, right? Okay, how to create these things, right? At the same time, remember the do's and don'ts and demos can be given, right? But the work you are going to do it, but it is going to be very interesting work, right? Because the happiness of seeing a finished module and uploading it on YouTube channel or something like that, and people view it and they give a comment, it's a good video, then you feel so rewarded for the good work you do. That will be a kind of a motivation for you to do further production activities, right? Okay. And then preparing for the narration, sitting in front of the camera, speaking and recording it, right? It is something that we will have to practice, right? Because it is not something that we are tuned to already, because we are not actors and actresses. You see, we have been poor teachers, so we don't know to do that. So a little bit of care we have to make it, right? Preparing for the narration. And for instance, I have seen in my workshops, we do conduct a lot of workshops, right, for e-content development. People will say, when the camera starts for shooting, they will say, hello students, good afternoon. They will say, immediately from behind, we will say, cut please, right? Okay, stop. Because shooting is being done in the afternoon. That doesn't mean that the boy or a girl is going to see the content only in the afternoon, because this content is going to be on a website and the student may watch it any time of the day, right? Okay. So that is important. And video shooting is practicing for the camera and doing it, okay, recording it and taking as an output, and editing the video. So tomorrow Dr. Muthupandi will give you the software and will give you a comprehensive demo on how to work with that software OpenShot for editing the video. And for publishing, there are very many platforms. Your college website is there, your own blog may be there already, and YouTube, if you are a Gmail account holder, you already have a space in YouTube, you can publish it, right? Okay. So finally, all that I want to tell you before I close my talk and open up for discussion is that if you want to be a good content developer, you should have 3 eyes. One is visualize. No, you look at any content, let it be chemical bonding, let it be genetic engineering, let it be photosynthesis, let it be equilateral triangle, or any small concept you take, you visualize it in such a way that how my students are going to experience this knowledge on the screen as a visual input. I hope I am making myself clear. You should think from that point of view. How are my students going to experience this content on the screen, okay, with their eyes and ears? Okay, so that is what is visualization. And analyze, you have to do a lot of analysis. First thing is, for whom I'm creating this content. If the content is created for a first year student of engineering, You should know what the boy has already studied in his or her +2. If there is going to be a disconnect between what he has not learned and what you are going to present here, ultimately the fruitful learning is not going to happen. Okay, so you should try to link it with the previous knowledge, right? And for whom I am targeting, and will this example be relevant to this learner? Can he or she understand this concept with this point, right? Like that, all these things all have to be analyzed. At the next level, you have to do an analysis with this content. Can I use a picture for this content? Can I use a video to explain this process? If the video cannot be helpful, can I create an animation on, very simple, even on PowerPoint presentation, custom animation you can do, right? Now, if you are going to talk about something, a flow, right? This is happens first, this happens, say next. You can create it as a beautiful animation using custom animation option in your PowerPoint slide, and convert that custom animated PPT slide into a video and embed that video into your content. It's possible. Analyze. And then next is criticize. After writing your script, you do a self-criticism at your level, right? Am I right in this, right? Am I making myself meaningful here, right? Like that. Now, if it is going to be a workshop, a face-to-face workshop, we will ask them to subject it to peer criticism. Show it to a fellow physics teacher. Show it, if your content is in chemistry, show it to a fellow chemistry teacher, and ask him or her to give the views as to whether it is good or not. You explain to him, see, this is my objective, and this is the image I'm using, and this is the video I'm going to show, and this is the way I'm going to end my module. Will this lead to good learning or not? That way. Okay. And finally, experts criticism. It can be given to any expert who has already created contents and get their views. It's nothing long in getting it, right? Okay. So these are the ways, right? That's important here that you'll have to do here. So I'm done with my presentation, right? And I am available to you for further discussions on my mail. You can feel free to interact with me on my WhatsApp as well, right? And I'll share a couple of things with Dr. Saktivel. One is a script, okay, of a content, a 4-minute or 5-minute content, a triple column script, and in the same PDF file, at the bottom, second page, last, we will have a URL of the YouTube link also. So after reading the script, when you click on that YouTube link, you will see a finished content. So what it looks like in the script stage and what it comes as a finished finished product. So you will have some deeper understanding. There is no necessity that you have to depend on my content alone for learning these things. On CEC channel, on EPGP channel, Electronic Postgraduate Pathshala, InfluentNet portal, on CEC, on NPTEL, there are so much of contents available, right? You can see any of them. In fact, all of them are quality checked and approved by experts, right? So they can be taken as real good models. And what is important here is that do an analysis and arrive at one particular design, right? That is going to be working for you, right? Okay, and that is how you should make it, right? And thank you, my dear friends. Here I stop, and I'm available to you for further discussions. I know I have taken a lot of time of the next speaker. I should sincerely apologize to the next speaker who is in waiting, right? But anyway, I thought I would bring it down to a certain level, but I couldn't do. So thank you very much, every one of you. And it's good to see a lot of people enthusiastically participating in this program. I request you not to simply attend the sessions, but be participative, right? And participation means concentration, participation means reflection, and participation means real take-home values. And here in this context, in this program, it is going to be result-oriented also. It is going to be deliverables oriented also. You are going to have some outputs. Don't think that it is because the organizers are compelling you, you are going to create a video for yourself. Do it as an exercise for your own sense of satisfaction having attended a program. And if you can get, even if you can make better PowerPoint presentations in the days to come, then I think the success of the program is real. That's what I would say. Okay, it's over to Dr. Saktivel and the team for moderating the discussions. If there are any, I'll be very happy to answer any queries. And of course, time is a big constraint. I know the organizers would be under a lot of pressure now, right? Okay, for managing the next session and all. Anyway, I'll be happy to take some questions. Yes, please. Yeah.
Professor, thank you very much. Thank you very much.